I sort of fell into art by accident. I really never meant to be artistic. I don't think you can ever mean to be artistic. I think you just have to try to do it. I did take a lot of undergraduate painting classes when I was going to Hunter College in New York City. That was basically my minor before I moved here and didn't completely finish that part of my journey. I just love to paint and I love color. I did not know how to sew until 10 years ago. And then for about 2 years, I created work that was probably the best. You know, when you're starting out, you're learning a lot. I am self-taught, so that's why I tell everyone that what I do, anybody can do, right? Everyone has their different journeys, their different materials, different experiences. I think that our experiences shape a lot of what we become and the things we learn along the way. I started sewing when my daughter was 2.5. And I love color. I love it in all its forms. I love it on the covers of books. In fact, I buy books because of the cover. I have been guilty of that, and I still am. I love color in houses. So this is one of the things behind me that I created last summer. And I just love to play with it. And then if it doesn't work out, you can always prime it and you can paint it solid again. So I'm not afraid of introducing sparks of color into everything. Although I don't always dress the most colorful. I do want it in my home and my life. I did go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York a lot of Sundays because it was an inexpensive thing to do. It was a wonderful thing to do, and we students didn't have to pay. So I would go into the city. We lived in Brooklyn, and I would just spend some time there, and it was so quiet. I think it was just a way to really admire art. And the MoMA was another place that I visited. And that is where I found the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. And then many years later, I found out that he was actually from Wisconsin. So I think a lot of his design, his architecture really inspired me. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that it looked so amazing, so avant-garde and ahead of its time. And then the home that we live in has a lot of the features that he designed. So I really love that. Although a lot of the work that I do happens to be by myself, I love it to meet people, to teach them that, or maybe guide them that anything is possible. We have this perception that we have to be trained with the masters, that we have to be popular to reach an audience, that we have to be born in the place that we live in order to make it as a human, as an artist, as a writer, whatever inspires you. And I have moved so much in my life. This is the only place I have lived continuously for 18 years. And that is the Midwest. I have lived in the Midwest longer than I have in any other part of the world. So it's a way to make my mark and my home, my roots, whatever that might be. So I really love it. I think I do it because I really want to meet people. And I want to just share some of the things that I love. I also seek a lot. I don't consider myself a quilter. And I know that's kind of shocking because quilting is one of the things that I do the most. But I like to play with ink. I like to play with paint. I like to play with paper, with fabric. That tactile connection is what I seek. So I started how the sewing began. That was with fabric, right? very simplistic fabric forms, for lack of a better term. But then I have been looking more at the traditions, the worldwide traditions of how we make things last, right? The sustainable approaches to making art, because not everything that I use is brand new. In fact, more than half of what I use is not new materials. So this is one of the workshops that I'm teaching in Minnesota in June, if I have enough people to sign up, of course. I created this in 2013 when I was starting out, so I know that my love for repurposed things has always been strong, and I like to joke that Cubans invented recycling because we don't throw anything away. We don't have a lot of things to throw away, so that's where that comes from. So this is all from friends of mine in the community that gave me jeans back in 2012, and it's one of my favorites too. And everything's blue, so blue. So I like wood, and that's why I was teaching or leading rather barn quilt painting workshops. Or I would draft the designs for some of my customers, and they would do it on their own. The only thing I haven't worked with, I think, the few things, glass and metal. And I know that those things will be coming at some point in my life. And this one is called Glass Houses in Illinois. I will be teaching the brass octopus in the spring. So this was actually a very old cloth, like an old sack, flour sack. And then I printed it with nature motifs. It is pieced by machine. This fabric here was dyed by Jennifer Falkowski. This has some Japanese fabric in there. This is a Japanese designer. Again, you see orange. Orange is always popping up. And denim. These were actual pants. So trying to repurpose. These are also pant legs, and you can see it right there. I do find beauty in discarded things. I like to repurpose. This I found, we have 3 acres of land about an hour away from here. And I know it's not really driftwood because we don't have a river or water there. But I wove this from that piece. So I'm really drawn to nature and the ocean. I still have to add more of the work here. I will do it as a foundation, but I was eager to see how things were going to start looking together. So always the first part of my work is to add it to a foundation. And sometimes things are stitched twice. Some people would say that I'm working twice, but that's okay. I prefer working by hand whenever possible. For me, I think education is probably the most important thing. I just want to learn, and I want to pass on that knowledge. I don't believe that we should learn things to keep it to ourselves. I see beautiful things out there, but I don't have a thirst to want to create them. So there has to be a curiosity, there has to be a desire for me to want to teach it to someone else. Then I know that I will finish it, that it will be rewarding, and that I can actually teach someone else something new and refreshing and have energy. I do believe that good work has positive energy. And the opportunities that I take now, whether to teach, to speak, whatever it is, it has to have the right energy. I don't care what they pay me to do it. If it doesn't have the right energy, I will no longer do it. And then this one is, I started teaching myself sashiko Japanese sashiko stitching, and this is all done by hand. And I started doing this in the beginning of 2016, and I absolutely love it. I would never sell this ever in a million years, no matter what. It has a lot of memories. So one of the things that I have realized and that I talk about is the memory of stitches. I know exactly where I was, where I bought my materials. You have a connection to what you make. And so that's why I don't like to make a lot of things. Not at all. So they have to have a specific reason for being. I had lots and lots of quilts, but some of them were given away in 2018 when my daughter was sick. I decided that I was going to give people that were going through cancer treatment some of my quilts. And some people I did not know, and other people I did. So there was a lot of people going through it. So this here is a quilt that appeared on PVS. I think it was Quilts of Wisconsin, I think the segment was called, in 2016. And this was something I wanted to create. All the broken promises of that era, as well as the advances that they made. So not everything was bad. And then this one I actually had it at Quilt Expo in Madison, just shown. You can apply to have your work shown there. A lot of my handwork is not for sale because I have thousands of hours invested in handwork. But I have made a lot of beautiful, colorful quilts that I have donated to people going through illness. So that gives me hope as well, to brighten someone's day. Obviously, I do aim to create a nice living for me and my family, but what I do is not my main source of income. So that gives me hope. I don't want to do it as a main source of my income, because I think that sometimes we can drive people away if we are pushing and pushing too hard. So it is important to create your own path and try to make a living, but that's not why I do this primarily. The ability to create something with your hands, that you see it grow, it's very empowering to me. Hand stitching projects. I do love technology, and I think it's important to teach everyone to sew so that they can fix their clothing at the most basic level. But handwork, because you have to be patient. You don't have to think too hard about it, and I think that's what I like about it. Once you figure out the colors and the textures of what you want to use. I wanted to create something in black and white, but orange always perseveres. So a lot of my work just happens to have a lot of orange. I think must be accidental, I don't know. I also use whatever I have. So if you notice, the border here is yellow, and then I have red. I just ran out of yellow. So I am very practical when it comes to that stuff. It doesn't really have a special meaning. It's just, I ran out of yellow. But it gives you a chance to take it with you everywhere. I like the meditative aspect of it. I like the quiet aspects of handwork. I do like silence, so I work in silence when I'm home. And learning about the traditions, the Japanese sashiko and boro traditions, American quilters. You know, we actually introduced quilting to Japan in the 60s. So I think the rich traditions that we have right here is also what drives me. So simple things that anybody can do. It's what I hope people take from that. And you can get fancy, you can get utilitarian with your work. So this is another class that I have in St. Cloud, Minnesota for the Minnesota Quilter Show. This was a class here in Baraboo a couple years ago. I was teaching more of a technique, not exactly the sunflower. So I teach a lot of techniques, and then people can take that technique and apply it to whatever else they would like. And then the Sashiko Table Runner, that is also a class in St. Cloud, Minnesota for the Minnesota Quilters Show. It is all by hand, but it comes pre-printed. So that is how that has evolved. Now it comes pre-printed so that we can follow almost a perfect stitch pattern. And then you can wash the cloth. Basically, the stitch marks dissolve. So you don't know if you really made a mistake. It could be as big or small as you want. Yeah. So I've been teaching it for a little while now, more than a couple of years. And then this is the back. So I haven't decided, I have to keep it long enough for the workshop, but I haven't decided what this will be. I'm going to cut it up and put it into something else. This is a class that I'm leading for the Midwest Fiber Arts Trail in March. I don't know if you can see it. These things right here are repurposed. This is printed by me, and it's all done. The actual stitching is done by hand once the panel is created. So it's going to be a scarf, I hope. Maybe it will grow into something bigger, but for the workshop at the end of March, that's what it will be, a scarf. The Midwest Fiber Arts Trail is a community event that started in Minnesota by Jennifer Wilder. She's the founder of it. And now it takes place all around Wisconsin, Minnesota, and I believe there's other states involved. And everyone has a trail. It is in the arts building, but then I teach my workshops at Artist, and there's a lot of other artists involved. So I teach as an independent contractor, and then when I'm not teaching in the evenings or the weekends, I work there as well, full time. So what came first was I bought my first sewing machine from there 10 years ago in the fall. And then I had another professional job here in town for over a decade. And through my love of sewing, this just evolved. So at the very beginning, when I was learning how to do this, right? And then you have to learn how to market yourself, both in print and in person, right? Because everything we create, it's not only a part of who we are, but where we're going, right? So everything instructs the next step. So when, like being featured in Quilted, the book by Uppercase in Canada, that didn't necessarily open a lot of doors, right? Not like you would expect, but it's just those small things that you do in your journey that hopefully lead to better opportunities and being taken seriously. I think that I consider myself a small artist, right? Because I'm not trying to teach internationally. I'm not trying to teach in every state, but I do welcome those opportunities if the timing is right and the opportunity is right. Even now, I do not take every opportunity that comes my way. So I am very picky in what I select now. And that's part of marketing, a way to market ourselves. I am very grateful to be included in a book that has so many famous people. So I think there's always that struggle in trying to keep some things private, trying to educate and promote the art that you're creating that is different from what other people are creating. It's always a struggle between going in and going out, right? At least for me it is. But you just take it one opportunity at a time. For the most part, I don't send out requests to teach. I did do a few this year because I wanted to get beyond the fear of putting yourself out there. But most of the time, I wait until someone invites me. Because I think when they invite you, they truly want what you represent. Your art, yourself, your personality, things like that. I teach. That's primarily what I want to do. And the project always begins, I would say 95% of the time begins with a class idea. Because I don't want to inundate my home with stuff, right? I need to have a purpose for creating. And teaching gives me that purpose. A friend of mine who has a shop now in Middleton gave me all of this in a bag. And it was leftover fabrics from a quilt she created for her sister-in-law who passed away And I was resolute that I was going to use every little inch of what was inside that bag. And I don't know why I did it. I didn't even know who had created the fabric, who the designer was. I just knew that it had so much saturation of orange and just power and energy. And I put it all together. And I taught my first workshop from it in August of 2017. So I have been working with this since the spring of 2017. So this is called the chaos of perfection. Everyone is just so busy on trying to have this idea of what perfection looks like. And I'm showing people that there's no such thing, that even the chaos is what's truly beautiful in my eyes. So I searched for 2 years to find the back of this. And if you can see it, you can see the first part of my work through, because I needed to find fabric that would allow that to be visible. So I just love it. It's just my favorite thing I've ever done. It's just, and it's full size, so it can actually be used as a thing to keep ourselves warm. So it's not just for show, it's to be used. But this is one of the most important tenets of my work. I believe that everyone can be creative in any medium they choose at any time. Let's not be defined by the label artist. It can be an overwhelming and limiting adjective, as well as intimidating. For me, the primordial role of creativity is to take us outside of the mundane, everyday activities and to help us heal. Art, in any form you choose, is here to lift, challenge, and educate us. All of us have it inside of ourselves. Let's exalt others' abilities and create such excitement that they too will want to try it. Art lives and breathes with us.